Shadowkiss, Chapter 28. The next 12 hours were the longest in my life. Our group made it back to the campus safely, though most of it was done at run, which was hard with so many injured. The entire time I felt nausea, presumably because Strigoi were near. If they were, they have caught up to us, and it is possible I was simply sick from everything that had happened in the caves. One back behind the walls, the other non-voice, and I have forgotten we were safe, and the adults now had to a lot of other things to concern themselves with. All of the captives had been rescued, all the ones that were alive. As I could feared, the Strigoi had decided to munch on one before we got there. That meant we had rescued 12. Six guardians, including Drimmit, had been lost. Those were not bad numbers considering how many Strigoi we have faced. But when you took the difference, it really meant we could only save the six lives. Had the loss of the others' guardians been worth it? You cannot look it that way, Eve told me as we walked towards the clinic. Everyone, prisoners and raiders, had been ordered to get checked out. You don't just save those lives. You guys killed almost 30 Strigoi plus the one on the campus. Think about all the people they could have killed. You essentially saved all those people's lives too. A rational part of me know he was right, but what did rationally have to do with anything when Drimmit might be dead? It was pretty unselfish, but in that moment I wanted to trade all of those lives for his. He could not have wanted that, though I know him, and thought the tiniest, smallest chance it was possible he was not dead, even though the bite had looked pretty serious, that Strigoi could have incapacitated him and then fled. He could be lying in the caves right now, dying and in need of medical care. It drove me crazy thinking of him like that and us unable to help. There was no way we could go back, however, not until daytime. Another party could go then to bring back our dead so that we could bury them. Until then, I had to wait. Dr. Oldesky gave me a quick check, decided I don't have a consciousness, and that sent me away to bandage my own scalpels. She had too many others to worry about right now who were in far worse condition. I know the smart thing was to go to the dorm or to Lisa. I could have used the rest, and through the bond, I felt her calling to me. She was worried, she was afraid. I know she could find out the news soon, though. She don't need me, and I don't want to see her. I don't want to see anyone. So rather than go to my dorm, I went to the chapel. I needed to do something until the caves could be checked out. Praying was the good as option as any. The chapel was usually empty in the middle of the day, but not this time. I should not have been surprised, considering the death and tragedy of the last 24 hours. It was only natural the people could seek comfort. Some sat alone, some sat in groups. They cried, they knelt, they prayed. Some simply stared off into the space, clearly unable to believe what had happened. Father Andrew moved around the sanitary, speaking to many of them. I found an empty pew in the very back corner and sat there. Drawing my knees up to me, I wrapped my arms around them and rested my head. On the walls, ions of saints and angels watched us all over us. Jimmet could not be dead. There is no way he could be. Surely, if he was, I could know no one could take a life like that from the world. No one who had held me in the bed like he had yesterday could really be gone. We had been too warm, too alive. Death could not follow something like that. Lisa Chokoti was around my wrist, and I ran my fingers over the cross and the beads. I tried desperately put my thoughts into the form of prayers, but I don't know how. If God was real, I figured he was powerful enough to know what I wanted without me actually saying the right words. Hours passed, people came and went. I got tired of sitting and eventually stretched myself across the length of the pew. From the old painted ceilings, more saints and angels started down at me. So much divine help, I thought, but what good they were really doing. I don't even realize I have fallen asleep until Lisa woke me up. She looked like an angel herself, the pale hair hanging long and loose around her face. Her eyes were gentle and compassionate as those of the saints. Rose, she said, we have been looking all over for you. You have Have you been here the entire time? I sat up, feeling tired and bleary eyed, considering I had not slept the night before and then gone for a massive ride. My fatigue was understandable. Pretty much, I told her. She shook her head. That was hours ago. You should go and eat something. I'm not hungry. Hours ago, I clutched her arm. What time it is? Has the sun came up? No, it is still about, 5 hours away. 5 hours. How could I wait that long? Lisa touched my face. I felt magic burn through my bond, and then the warm and cold tingling coursed through my own skin. Worries and cuts disappeared. You should not do that, I said. A faint smile crossed her lips. I have been doing it all day. I had been helping Dr. Oldesky. I heard that, but wow, it feels so strange. We have always kept it hidden, you know. It does not matter if everyone knows now, he said with a sturge. After everything what had happened, I had to help. So many people are hurt. And if it means my secret getting out, well, it had been sooner or later. Adam had been helping too, though he cannot do much. And then it hit me. I straightened up. Oh my god, Liz, you can save him. You can help Trimmed. Deep sorrow filled her face, and the bond rose. She said quietly, They say Drummond is dead. No, I said, he cannot be. You don't understand. I think he was just injured, probably badly. But if you're there, when they bring him back, you can heal him. Then the gracious thought all came to me. And if he is dead, the words heard coming out, you could bring him back. Just like with me. He could be Shadowkissed too. Her face grew even sadder. Sorrow for me now radiated out from her. I cannot do that. Bringing people back from the dead is a huge power drain, and besides, I don't think I could do it on someone who has been dead up that long. I think it has to be recent. I could hear the crazy depression in my own voice. But you have to try. I cannot, she swallowed. You heard what I said to the queen. I mean it. I cannot go around bringing every dead person back to life. That gets into the kind of abuse Victor wanted. It is why he kept this secret. You could let him die. You could not do this. You could not do this for me. I was shouting, but my voice was definitely too loud for a church. Most everyone was gone now, and with the level of grief around here, I doubt that anyone thought too much of an outburst. I could do anything for you, you know that, and you won't do this for me? I was on the verge of sobbing. Liza studied me, a million thoughts swelling in her mind. She assessed my words, my face, my voice, and like that she finally got it. She finally realized what I felt for Drummond, that it was more than a teacher student bond. I felt the knowledge lit up in her mind. Countless connections suddenly came together for her. Comments I could make, ways that Dermot and I acted around each other. It all made sense to her now. Things she could be too blind to notice. Question immediately sprang up too, but she don't ask any of them or even mention what she realized. Instead, she just took my hand in hers and pulled me close. I'm so sorry, Rose. I'm so sorry. I cannot. I let her drag me away after that, presumably to get food. But when I sat at the cafeteria table and started at the tray in front of me, the thought eating anything made me sicker than being around Strigoi had. She gave up after that, realizing nothing was going to happen until I knew what had happened to Drummond. We went up to her room and I lay down on the bed. She sat near me, but I don't want to talk, and I soon fell asleep again. The next time I woke up, it was my mother beside me. Rose, we are going to check the caves. You cannot go into them, but you can come to the school borders with us if you want. It was the best I could get if it meant I could find out what had happened to Drummond a moment sooner than if I stayed here. I could do it. Lisa came with me. We trailed behind the assembled guardian party. I was still hurt by her refusal to heal Drummond, but a part of me secretly thought she could not be able to hold back once she saw him. The guardians had assembled a large group to check the caves just in case. We were pretty sure the Strigoi were gone, however. They could lose their advantage and had to know that we came back for the dead. It could be with renowned numbers. Any of them that have survived were gone. The guardians crossed over the wards. and the rest of us who had followed along waited by the border. Hardly anyone spoke. It could be probably by 3 hours before they came back, counting travel time, trying to ignore the dark, blended feeling inside of me. I sat on the ground and rested my head against Eliza's shoulder, wishing the minutes could fly by. A Morai fire user created a bonfire, and we all warmed ourselves up to it. The minutes don't fly, but they did eventually pass. Someone shouted the guardians came back. I leaped up and ran to look. When I saw drove me to the halt. What I saw drove me to the halt. Stretchers carrying the bodies of those who had been killed, dead guardians, their faces pale and eyes unseeing. One of them, watching Morai, went and threw up in the bush. Lisa started crying. One by one, the dead filled us. I started feeling cold and empty, wondering if I could see their ghosts the next time I went outside the wards. Finally, the whole group had gone by, 5 bodies, but it had felt like 500. And there was one body I had not seen, one had been reading. I ran up to my mother. She was helping carry a stretcher. She could not look at me and undoubtedly know what I could come to ask. Where is Truman? I demanded. Is he? It was too much to hope for. Too much to ask. Is he alive? Oh God, what if my prayers had been answered? What if he was back there injured, waiting for them to send a doctor? My mother had not answered right away. I barely recognized her voice when she said, she was not there, Rose. I stumbled over an uneven ground and had to hurry up to catch her again. Wait, what that does mean? Maybe he is injured and left to get help. She still could not look at me. Molly was not there either. Molly was the Morai who had been snagged on. She was my age, tall and beautiful. I could see her body in the cave, drained by blood. She had definitely been dead. There is no way she could be injured and dragged out. Molly and Drummond, both their bodies are gone. No, I grasped out. You don't think a tear leaked out of my mom's eyes. I had never seen anything like that from her. I don't know what to think, Rose. If he survived, it is possible. It is possible. They took him for later. The thought of Drummond as a snack was too horrible for words. But it was not as horrible as the alternative. We both know it. But they could not have taken Molly for later. She could be dead a while. My mother nodded. I'm sorry, Rose. We cannot know for sure. It was like they both just did, and the Strigoi dragged their bodies off. She was lying. It was the first time in my entire life that my mother had ever told me a lie to protect me. She was not the comforting kind, was not the kind who could make up pretty stories in order to make someone feel better. She always told the harsh truth, not this time. I stopped walking and the group continued filling past to me. Lisa caught up, worried and confused. What is happening? She asked. I don't answer. Instead, I turned and ran back towards the wards. She ran after me, calling my name. No one else noticed us because honestly, who in the world could stupid enough to cross the wards after everything that had happened? I was, although in daylight, I had nothing to fear. I ran past the place Jess group had attacked her, stepping across the invisible lines that marked the boundaries of the academic grounds. Lisa hesitated a moment and then joined me. She was breathing from running after me. Rose, what are you? Manson, I cried. Manson, I need you. It took him a little while to materialize. This time, he not only seems utterly pale, he also seems to be flickering like a light about to go out. He stood there watching me, and although his expression was the same as always, I had the weirdest feeling that he knew what I was going to ask. Lisa, beside me, kept glancing back and forth between me and the spot I was speaking to. Manson, is Dramatis dead? Manson shook his head. Is he alive? Manson shook his head. Neither alive nor dead. The world swam around me, sparkles of color dancing before my eyes. The lack of food made me dizzy, and I was on the verge of fainting. I had to stay in control here. I had to ask the next question. Out of all the victims that could have chosen, surely they could not have picked him. The next word stuck in my throat, and I sank to my knees as I spoke to him. Is Jimmet Astrigoi? Manson hesitated only a moment, like he was afraid to answer me, and then he nodded. My heart shattered, my world shattered. You will lose what you value the most. It had not been the Driganda was talking about. It had not even been Drimmel's life. What you value the most, it had been his soul.